I'm really excited for our next guest. He and his partners at Flex Park USA have been an amazing asset for us at Flex Park Partners as we've been diving into this space and getting to know what it is we're getting into it in Flex Parks. Austin Edelman and his partners have been in this space for nearly 2 decades and literally have written the book. If you haven't read Flex Space Domination yet, highly recommend. One of the most consumable books that you will ever read. What I mean by that is it is short and sweet and to the point. There is no fluff, there's no like going on side tangents. It tells you exactly what you need to know in the clearest and most concise way possible, which as a reader, I super appreciate. I'm so going to introduce Austin Edelman from Colliers out of the Dallas Fort Worth market, a hotbed of this small bay flex industrial asset class, and going to let him talk a little bit about what they're seeing in the leasing space and some of the questions we've asked, which is how do we figure out what we can expect as far as lease rates, lease terms, escalations, those different things that are important to us as we're underwriting. Austin, first and foremost, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, Thaddeus, thanks for having me on. My name's Austin Edelman. I'm with Colliers International. We also operate Flex Parks USA, which is kind of our development arm. We work with a lot of individuals that are doing new construction and ground up stuff. So we kind of share details with them on what we see in different markets, where they're looking to purchase land, what type of projects they need to build. So just to kind of jump in, wanted to kind of identify market rates for new development and existing value add properties. We'll go ahead and start with just the new development. So we look at land from coast to coast. A lot of groups reach out. They send us parcels. They are a little bit unfamiliar with the area, so they just want to have us dive in and research, look at some of the demographic stuff, what makes it work, what makes it not work. So that's been really key for us. We have highlighted a couple bullet points that we utilize in our world engine model, which kind of gives these groups just an overview of where they're looking. So demographics are key. You want to see some good upside on population growth and trajectory. We like to see that anywhere, 1 to 2% is kind of what we think is a good market for this stuff to go in, and gives kind of a break even point. If you see anything above that, then obviously that's going to be ideal and really push the rates on parks that you're building. Household income, household value, that's also another indicator on the income side. Anything above 125K is going to show a strong population base where there are the more affluent individuals that are going to be utilizing these type spaces. That's going to be key to getting occupancy up. Those are going to be your guys that own small businesses. So they're going to need something to support that, a small office, the warehouse component where they can store goods, anything like that. Population growth, I've already touched on. You just want to make sure that that's going forward. You don't want to see any negative growth because that's going to really beat down your rates and, not get you to the point that you want to be at. So I think it's crucial that you identify parts of suburbs, new cities that are, a lot of young people are moving to, new home construction, that type of stuff. Per capita spending is also a big one. That's showing that people are using discretionary income. They're going out, they're going to restaurants, they're eating, they're shopping, they're doing stuff locally. That's going to be kind of a metric, and we like to see that one hovering around $12,000 per person. That's going to give you a good idea that the rental rates are going to be strong. You can increase those and move them around. Also, households that are owned to rent is another key factor. You want to find places that have a lot of families that own the houses. So, those are going to be your guys that are in business. It's going to be white collar. They're going to be the lawyers, the medical professionals. They may have side hobbies or something that creates the environment for them to utilize these spaces. But that's just kind of a overview of demographic data that we kind of hone in on and use to look at sites, see if they're going to be good. The next part you want to move into is going to be your build. We like to see these. The best ones that we've seen that achieve the highest rental rates are around that 60 to 75,000 square feet. Obviously, you can go higher, over 100,000. You just kind of get a lot of units. Some of the ones in the back may be a little bit more difficult to fill if you're filling up the ones in the front that have frontage. So, 60 to 75,000, that range on building size or park size, I should say, is ideal. And, a lot of the things for the new construction that we look through is just existing parks that are in the surrounding area. You can utilize CoStar, LoopNet, Crexy. We do Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist to identify rental rates. But a lot of the time on the older product, those are individuals that kind of just built those buildings. They occupy a portion of it, and then they just saw the demand, so they continued building. Have 5, 6, 7 buildings on site, each broken into 1,250, 1,500 square foot units, and they filled it up. They are not chasing market rates. So a lot of the time they're going to be under, and that's going to be why a lot of these parks that are older are 100%, because they get, a mom and pop automotive guy, a roofer, a pool guy, a car detailer. They bring them in at a set rate and then they don't increase them year over year. So we try to stay away from some of the older product because it's not competing at the market level. CoStar comes into play a little bit. It'll at least show us what other existing facilities are getting. Then what we do with that is we take an average and we say, you're at $12 a square foot plus triple net. But if you want to incentivize some of these spaces, you can incorporate amenities into them where, you do a mezzanine level, maybe you do showroom glass in the office or build out a retail component. You do a higher clear height. A lot of these existing parks, they are outdated in size. Some of the units are smaller. We've seen them broken into 500 square feet to 1,000 square feet, which isn't ideal. You can utilize those spaces, but their clear height is 12, maybe 14 feet. And a lot of guys that are bringing in pallets or racking systems, they don't have enough space. So, it's meeting the demand of the market where you just kind of have to see what rates are getting in certain areas and then what type of amenities you can utilize to increase and, meet the market or go over and beyond. So with the new construction, that's what we like to do. We have 3 models that we utilize. We've got an efficient build, which is, a 20-80% breakdown of office to warehouse. It's real general. You don't have anything fancy. It's just a space that's, utilized by new business owners. Maybe they need something that they're moving out of their garage for. That is a clean cut product. It's easy to build. You may have gravel drives at it, no concrete. So that's just something, if you want to throw together a park, you meet the market on rental rates, you go from there. But then you can get into your showroom concept. That will increase your rental rates as well. If you have frontage, which is always crucial, if you find land, you want to make sure that you have frontage on the main road. It's visible, it's easy to see, people can find it, you have nice signage, and that showroom is going to add value as well because you're going to get a little bit more higher end tenant. Maybe they have wheels, tires, flooring, accessories. that they want to showcase. So maybe you have 50-50 where it's showroom and warehouse where they store stuff. And that's another way that we've kind of seen rental rates beat the market as well. Also, secured yards, that's been a big one that we've seen recently on new construction. A lot of flex parks are not offering that. These guys, you know, they've got trailers, they've got materials that maybe don't need to be inside. You know, they're on pallets or whatnot, and they can just be secured in an area off site and leave room for them to work on vehicles or get their shipments prepared in the warehouse. That's been a big deal. That can push rates, you know, $1.50, $2 a square foot add-on, because nobody's utilizing and incorporating that into their models. And there's a high demand for that. With ISO, a lot of people have been competitive with truck parking, and having that accommodate a flex space can help out tremendously on rental rates as well. But that's just some of the, you know, items that we look at on the new build side. For existing value add stuff, that one's pretty cut to the chase. You know, like I said before, a lot of these guys that have owned these parks, they've been there for years. They beat everybody to the punch. You know, they bought something out in the county, ETJ land. The suburbs just kind of built up around them. New houses came online, and those parks became hot commodities. You know, that's where everybody was chasing. You could see a lot of upside on rental rates in those markets over the last 2 to 3 years as we came out of COVID. A lot of those parks, you know, the owners they built up a client list. They've got tenants in place. A lot of them are good friends. They never initiated any type of rental bumps into their leases. So, you know, a few years ago, they just kind of set them at $7, $8 a foot and never moved them on. And that's a downside that we see a lot when they go to sell, because there is no opportunity. But, you know, recently we've seen people, they come in, they clean out some of the tenants that may take up too much of the parking. They clean up the buildings, you know, fix some of the metal siding that's been bent. They paint it, make it look good. And that way, you know, you can go in, get the triple nets, and really increase the value on those parks.
Austin, appreciate it. I'm going to bring John Polian in. He was asking a question in the chat that was important. I'll have him ask it live if he's still around.
Yeah, no, thank you, Thaddeus. I was just curious you mentioned from a location perspective, you're always focused on the high medium household income over 125,000. I've found that a lot of these properties are located like in industrial pockets where the average household income is quite a bit lower just because there's not a lot of residential in the area. Just curious from your perspective how you kind of weigh being close to other industrial properties versus being close to the households.
Yeah, so it sounds like if you're mentioning industrial areas, that may be a more infill product where there's a lot of existing tilt wall, center block projects nearby. It depends on the city. You know, we've seen that it's very difficult with some of these existing towns that are infill locations. They won't really let you build the metal small bay stuff anymore. Obviously, you'd have to do a lot of upgrades to the facade. You have to do landscaping to meet requirements for those cities. So, you know, there is opportunity if you can build a project that makes sense. You know, your pricing from the land aspect to development to construction. If it makes sense for your model, there could be upside. The reason that we look at the household income is because a lot of these new construction parks are in county land or ETJ, which is on the verge of being annexed by a city, but they haven't gotten to that area yet. So it's, you know, in the docket to be brought into, say, Fort Worth or Dallas in the next few years. And that's just where we've seen the majority of the metal parks built. So, you know, if you're doing infill, obviously your build cost is going to be a little bit higher. You may not be able to target market rate projections because vacancy factors have been an issue. In Texas, at least, they've done a lot of big box industrial, and some of that stuff is sitting for lease a little bit longer. It's trickling down into the infill stuff. That stuff's older product, low clear heights, not opportune build outs. A lot of the time, those type of facilities are built for users. So it pushes the market rates down from what we've seen. But obviously, if you can go in, do a nice brick facade, a showroom type glass up at the front, you could definitely beat projections on market rates because you got into a pocket that you can't really get into anymore. So that's just, on the new land side, that higher household income is just a key indicator.
I got a question, Austin, I'm interested to ask. And as we're going through this process, one of the things I absolutely love about this space is in storage, I can go on 5 different websites and I can get all the listed rates for every facility in almost every market. Anyone that's on the web, I can track it very easily and I get historical data. Small Bay Flex, it's really challenging to get real numbers. And as you said, a lot of times you're dealing with mom and pop owners who've owned a facility for 20 years and they've never really escalated rents. They could be 50% of what the market could really bear. So I love that because it's harder, and anything that's harder, naturally there's a higher barrier to entry. I like the flip side of that is we still got to go to a bank at a certain point if we're going to do ground up construction or value add for that matter, and we've got to sell them a story about how we're going to get this thing to show a return. Historically, how am I really digging into what I'm going to show as a pro forma rental rate, but then B, how is that reflected in the market in the long term as far as how have assets performed relative to pro forma? Have we seen that assets typically, especially you talked about some of the higher level builds, are they outperforming pro forma as far as rates in the market?
So, for that, it's going to be what type of amenities can you include? So we're working on 160,000 square feet of brand new construction metal product in Kennedale, which is in the south side of Fort Worth. It's a little bit of an aging industrial market, but there's a lot of affluent households on the south side, going through Mansfield, Burleson. Some of those areas have been increasing over the last couple of years here. If you really truly want to beat the market, you're going to have to do a little bit of market research, see what type of facilities are nearby you, what are they not offering existing customers and people that are looking for, a space to rent in that area. The mezzanine is going to be a big one. The clear height. A lot of these older buildings, like I said, they don't have the room for people to store stuff in there. So they want something where they can either build out additional office. Maybe they're in a growth mode where they started with 2 or 3 employees. They're expecting, them to add on a couple more. That mezzanine level can be an option for them to store goods until they need the new office build out. So if you can attack that front, somebody's going to be willing to pay a premium if you're offering something they can't find anywhere else. That's also with the side yards. That's been a popular concept. A lot of people have been asking why you don't incorporate that into models. We always push for it. There's definitely a need for it. So I think that will be something that helps you out as well. And then just kind of, whenever you're going to a bank, CoStar has good data. You always have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt because it is inputted by other real estate brokers and agents. So you have to look at some stuff and you're like, okay, these leases were done at 18, but the market's only bearing $14 to $16 range. And I think that's just kind of going through the data, like you said, I mean, it's a lot of mom and pop owners that own this stuff. The lease rates are never marketed anywhere. You usually have to drive by a facility. The owner's cell phone number is probably on a little sign up in the front by the driveway. You give him a call, you know, he walks you through what's available, and then he just kind of throws a number out. So we've just been able to compile, you know, a lot of sales comps over the years, leasing comps as well. But with it being a new product type that a lot of people have been gaining interest and steam momentum in, you got to get a little bit dirty and you got to search out and find rental rates. But, you know, that's just kind of how this game is right now, where not a lot of brokers like to do this stuff because it is a smaller unit size. Usually the lease terms are anywhere from a year to 5 years. We like to keep them lower. So there are a lot of renewals that happen instead of, you know, a longer term lease with annual bumps in it. And, you know, that it's just something that if you're honed in on the area, find a good land site, just do some driving and, you know, reach out to some of those guys that own nearby, see what they're getting. And, you know, then you can add on amenities and be like, hey, you know, this is nowhere near available in a 5-10 mile radius. And you can kind of push the market that way too.
Got a question in the chat from Dave. I'm going to ask this one, Dave. I'll try and bring you on later, but we're a couple minutes behind. I want to try and keep on schedule. Are people developing this exclusively in industrial zoning, or does other zoning allow for this small bay flex product?
So that's going to be a case-by-case basis. You know, with the county stuff, you just have to worry about fire suppression, fire codes. There's ways to get around that. Where you don't have to incorporate that into buildings. That's why these business parks got popular, because they're smaller scale buildings. So like in North DFW, it ranges, if you're under 7,500 square feet on a full building, then your fire suppression stuff is not required. So if you find an area that's infill, that is zoned, obviously the industrial is going to be the easiest to work with. We've ran into a lot of issues where people look at retail zoned, medical office zoned, and they don't uncover it until it's too late. And then the city says, well, what you're looking to do is not what we want to incorporate into this area. And they basically shut it down right there on the spot. So, you want to do something friendly. If you have office zoning, you know, commercial zoning, it's just going to be a higher end product. So you have to make sure that if you have to go in, do nice facades, nice driveways, landscaping and lighting, that it's not an overbuilt project where, you know, your cost outweighs what your rental rates are going to be.
Austin Edelman, man, everyone give me a pair of clapping hands in the chat. Unbelievable information. Austin, by the way, was on my podcast. If you haven't checked out the podcast, he spent a half hour talking about this stuff. You can go back and grab that. And of course, I'll remind everyone, you're going to get a recording of this, so you'll be able to go back and listen again. Austin, can't thank you enough. As always, such a wealth of information and a willingness to share, which is incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.